document called as X.800. So the society is International Telecommunication Union Telecommunication Standard Sector. We call it as ITU-T. It has provided some security services in its document called as X.800. Now, before going that, we'll just see a small introduction to security service. So a security service is service that is provided by a protocol layer of communication open systems and ensures security of the system or data transfers. I told you, no. So we provide some security service for the data that is stored within the organization or for the data that is going out of the organization to another organization. So here we provide security service by using some security mechanisms. We can use one mechanism or we can use more than one mechanism. So what does these security services will do is they will enhance the security of data processing systems and information transfers of an organization. And how they are going to provide the security is by countering the security attacks using one or more security mechanisms. Often the security services replicate functions of normally associated with physical documents. Now we'll see what are the different security services that are defined in X.800 of ITU-T. So the first security service that they have defined is authentication. The first security service that defined is what? Authentication. The authenticate service is concerned with assuring that a communication is authenticate. For example, if there is an organization, consider there is an organization A. So we can consider that the communication within the organization is an authenticator. For example, within the other organization, there may be a manager. Now the manager instructs his employees to do some work. Right? So for example, say that there is no authentication from the manager. So all the employees have received a work. All the employees have received their work, but they have no authorization saying that the work is received from the manager. So in the case, what happens? The employees feels that the work is not assigned to them by the manager, so it is not an important work. So this is one case where we need authentication. Similarly, within an organization A is communicating with an organization B. For example, consider A as principal of college A, B as principal of college B. Now, principal of A needs to send some data regarding a workshop or an FTP to an principal B. Now, if the principal A doesn't authenticate that message with something to the principal B, now principal B feels that that message received by him is not a message sent by the principal A. So these are the problems that occur. So to overcome all these problems, what we'll do is we'll provide a security service. So we'll provide two types of security service. That is the first service, that is authentication. In the authentication, we'll provide two types of authentication. That is peer entity authentication and data origin authentication. So peer entity authentication, we can consider in the same example that we consider between A and B. That is principal A communicating with principal B. So here we provide an authentication that the message received by B is from his peer entity principal A. So used in association with a logical connection. So A and B have a logical connection to provide confidence in the identity of the entities connected. So this is what happens. So data origin authentication in a connectionless transfer provides assurance that the source of received data is a claim. So I told you, manager will send some message to all the employees. So manager cannot communicate all the employees at a time. So he will send messages through some other mechanisms. So there the employees will feel that the data is origin from the manager. So this is the first security service that is provided by the X.800 by ITU-T. Now we'll see the second security service, that is access control. So access control is the ability to limit and control the access to the host systems and applications via communication links. To achieve this, each entity trying to gain access must first be identified and authenticated. So what does this access control? For example, there is a chance of attacks on the data. So consider you have a database in your organization. you have a database in your organization. Now, who are the people allowed to access this database? All the employees who are working in the organization, they are allowed to access this database. Now, this is access control. How they're going to use this database? By using their username given to them and their password, right? And by using their password. So this is how we are, by using the username, we are identifying, by using the password, we are authenticating that, and authorized person is accessing the data. This is how we are going to provide access control within the organization. So this is one security service that generally we follow in the organization, within the organizations. So that is what access control. Now we are going to see the third security service provided or provided in the X.point 800, that is data confidentiality. So we know about confidentiality. So right, confidentiality is the protection of transmitted data from passive attacks. With respect to the content of the data transmission, several levels of protection can be identified. Several levels of protection can be identified. The other aspect of confidentiality is the protection of traffic flow from analysis. So in the last class, we have seen that there are two attacks. There are two attacks on the confidentiality. One is snooping and another one is traffic analysis. Snooping is that just they'll read the data. Just they'll read the data. So to overcome that attack, what we have done, we are given one solution that we use encipherment. We use encipherment, right? So to overcome the traffic analysis also, we use encipherment, right? So this requires that an attacker not be able to observe the source and destination, frequency, length, or other characteristics of traffic on a communication facility. So if you want to have a snooping attack, just he observes the data. But if you want to have attack, that is a traffic analysis attack, now he want to know about the destination, he want to know about the source, and as well as you need to know about the frequency, at what frequency they are communicating. They need to know about length. For each communication, what is the length of the message they are exchanging, or the characteristics like how many times they are communicating, whether they are communicating with short messages or for long messages, or how many amount of time they are communicating, whether they're communicating for 2 minutes or 10 minutes, or they're communicating for 30 minutes. Like these characteristics of the traffic, they will know. So to overcome these attacks, we'll provide some confidentiality services on the confidentiality. So again, in the confidentiality, we'll provide these things: connection confidentiality and connectionless confidentiality. So in the connection confidentiality, the protection of all user data on a connection will be provided. So we will provide the confidential protection of all user data that is being transferred on the connection. But if you consider connectionless confidentiality, see, we know that there are two types of protocols. Two types of protocols that we use to communication. Those are TCP and UDP, where TCP is an connection-oriented protocol, where UDP is an connectionless protocol. In the same way, we'll also have, if they are using a TCP, that is a connection-oriented protocol, there we provide protection on all user data that is traveling between that provided connection. But what happens with the connectionless protocol? There we doesn't have a particular connection, so there we provide a confidential security on the data block that is being transferred. So we can consider this with an example. For example, there are two communication entities A and B. Consider there are two communication entities A and B. Now if they are following a connection oriented protocol, that is TCP, now we provide security over the connection. You provide security over the connection. This is what connection confidentiality. We protect the data over this connection. But if they are communicating without any proper connection, that is, if they are using an UDP, so they will not provide, it will not follow a particular connection, right? Now what we'll do is, here we'll provide protection to the data block that is being transferred to B. Remember, this is the two things you should remember, that is like with respect to connection confidentiality and with respect to connectionless confidential. Now selective field confidentiality, the confidential selective fields within the user data on a connection or in a single data block. For example, if you see when we have in the computer networks, again, when you are transferring data using TCP or UDP, maybe you have seen TCP header and UDP header, where we have different header fields in the header. There we can use some selective fields to provide confidentiality. We can use some, for example, we are sending some padding bits, where we doesn't need to provide security. We can leave those padding bits and we can provide security only to the header where we are feeling that is very important. Okay, that is what we call it as selective field confidentiality. Traffic flow confidentiality. So the production of the information that might be derived from the observation of traffic flows, there we provide the security. So what are the up to now? We have considered 3 security services. What are those? Authentication, access control, and confidentiality. Now we are going to see the 4th security service, that is data integrity. Now, to assurance that, what does the assurance that data integrity provides you is that provides assurance that data received as exactly it is sent by the receiver. I told you, integrity, that is the one of the security goal, integrity. So integrity assures that whatever the data that is origin from the source, the data that is same as it is received at the receiver side without any modification, insertion, or deletion, or replay. So to provide this data integrity security service, we use the first one is connection integrity with recovery. So like TCP only. So whenever we provide this service, that first we detect whether there is any change in the data that is being transferred from A and B. There is any change in the data that is being transferred from A and B. If so, there is any change in the data that is being transferred from A and B. Now, what we'll do is we'll provide some recovery mechanism to recover the actual message. That is what called as connection integrity with recovery. That is, we are detecting whether there is any modification on the data or not. If so, if there is modification on the data, we'll try to recover that. We'll try to recover the data by using some recovery mechanisms. So how we are going to do recover, or how you are going to detect is, again, in the computer networks, you have seen the concept of Hamming code or cyclic redundancy check, where we check whether the data is received as it is or not, like that. Okay, so the second service in the data integrity is connection integrity without recovery. So this is same like the first one, that is, we are going to detect whether the data is received at the receiver side exactly as it is origin from the source. Like that, we detect it, but we doesn't apply any recovery mechanism. Okay, the last one is connectionless integrity. The last one is what? Connectionless integrity. So provides integrity over the connectionless data blocks and may take the form of detection of data modification. Additionally, a limited form of replay detection may be provided. So like for the protocols or for the communications which are following UDP, this is very helpful. Okay, now we'll see the last security service, that is non-repudiation. We know about repudiation attack. What is repudiation attacks? A sends a message to B. Now A can claim that he has not sent the message, or B can claim that he has not received the message. To overcome this attack, we'll provide a security service called as what? Non-repudiation. So non-repudiation prevents either sender or receiver from denying a transmitted message. Thus, when a message is sent, the receiver can prove that the alleged sender in fact sent the message. Similarly, when a message is received, the sender can prove that the alleged receiver in fact received the message. Now, we can consider this in the form of a WhatsApp. Now, whenever we send a message in the WhatsApp, in the perspective of a sender, so we can see two blue tick marks, which say that the receiver has received the message and he has read the message. So this is one. So now the receiver cannot deny that he has not received the message. Why? Because we can claim that if there are two black ticks, we can say that it is received by the receiver. If there are two blue tick marks, then we can say that the receiver has received the message and the receiver has read the message. So we can consider this. When a message is received, the sender can prove that the alleged receiver in fact received the message. So some small example for non-repudiation. So totally it is defined in ITU-T X.800. How many security services we have seen? We have seen 5 security services. What are those? Authentication, right? Access control, data confidentiality, then data integrity, and finally non-repudiation. Now we are providing all these security services to the organization by using what? Security mechanisms. Now we will see what are security mechanisms. So security mechanisms are the process or techniques that we use to counter the security attacks. We counter the security mechanisms. So we can divide these security mechanisms into two types. Those are specific security mechanisms and pervasive security mechanisms. So coming to specific security mechanisms, these are related with the protocol layers. These are related with the protocol layers. For example, we know generally we'll have two types of models, that is OSI model and TCP model. If we follow OSI model, we have 7 layers. If we follow TCP model, we have 5 layers. We all know that. We have studied in the computer networks. So if you are providing these security mechanisms with respect to the layers that we are considering in the OSI or TCP, we can call those security mechanisms as what? Specific security mechanisms. And if you are providing some security mechanisms without not related to any protocol, generally we are providing security mechanisms. Those are called as pervasive security mechanisms. But generally we'll see about only specific security mechanisms. Okay. So what are specific security mechanisms? Is mechanisms that provide security services to an appropriate protocol layer. What are pervasive security mechanisms? Mechanisms that are not specific to any particular security service or protocol, I call it pervasive security mechanisms. So these are some examples of specific security mechanisms, that is encipherment, digital signatures, access controls, data integrity, authentication exchange, traffic padding, routing protocol. Some examples of pervasive security mechanisms are trusted functionality, security labels, event detection, security audit trials, and security recovery. Now we'll see only specific security mechanism. So in that, the first one is encipherment. So we know encipherment is that like the normal plain text that is need to be transferred between two communication entities A and B will simply convert the normal plain text into an unreadable format using either a classical encryption technique or by using some symmetric or asymmetric algorithms. That is other case we'll see later, that one. So they will use some mathematical algorithms. So they'll use some mathematical algorithms. So the use of mathematical algorithms to transform data into a form that is not readily intelligible. Intelligible means it is not unreadable format. The transformation and subsequent recovery of the data depend upon the algorithm and 0 or more encryption keys. It depends. If you are following only one key, we can call it as symmetric algorithm. If you are following two keys, two different keys, we can call it as asymmetric encryption algorithm. 0 in the sense if you are following some transposition techniques or some substitution techniques, we consider monoalphabetic cipher. There we doesn't use any keys. Simply we replace one alphabet with the other alphabet, like that. So this is the one security mechanism. The next one is digital signature. So data appended to or a cryptographic transformation of a data unit that allows a recipient of the data unit to prove the source and integrity of the data unit and protect against forgery. So what does the digital signature provides? I told you, one example I told you about non-reputation is that WhatsApp. Similarly, the other one. So for example, if there are two communication entities, A and B, there are two communication entities, A and B. Now A will send a message to B. A will send a message to B. Now what will A use? A will use his mail ID. A uses his mail ID. Now, if B receives a message from A, now B can claim that he has received message from A, claiming that from the mail ID of A. Now, here we can consider this mail ID as a digital signature. So, digital signature is a thing which authenticates or which identifies the origin of the data. So, we are identifying the origin of the message by using the mail ID that we have received from A. So, we can consider this as a digital signature. Okay. So digital signature generally provides source and integrity of the data unit and protect against forgery. Okay. We'll see the next mechanism, that is access control. So a variety of mechanisms that enforce access rights to resources. Like one example I told you, username and password, or by using biometric fingerprint, or by using retina detection. So for example, there is a data, or there is a more important files within a room. If I want to enter into room, to get access into the room, I can use fingerprint as an access method, or I can use that eye biometric eye retina scan as an access. We can use many access control mechanisms, right? The next mechanism we consider is data integrity. Is what? Data integrity. So a variety of mechanisms used to assure the integrity of a data unit or stream of data units. And authentication exchange. So this authentication exchange is a mechanism intended to ensure the identity of an entity by means of information exchange. The next one is traffic padding. I told you, no, traffic padding. There, what we'll do is, with the actual message, we will pad some bits to the actual message. We'll pad some bits to the actual, like CRC only. CRC we can say, we'll pad some bits within the message. Now at the receiver side, we can remove that. At the receiver side, we can remove those padded bits. But what does this padded bits will do is, for example, consider the number of bits I want to communicate. The number of bits I want to communicate between, for example, A and B are communicating. The number of bits they need to communicate are 1, 0, 1. These are the bits they need to communicate. Like these need to communicate only 3 bits. Now, what does we'll do the traffic padding is, instead of 3 bits, we'll send 30 bits. We'll send 30 bits. But the bits positions, consider the first bit I want to communicate with B will be positioned at 5. The next bit at 20. The next bit is at 15. So we'll communicate with B. Before that, whatever the message I want to send you, they will be at the exact positions 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. This is not known to the attacker. Now what will do, along with these 3 bits, we'll pad it with 30 bits. Now, what does the attacker will do? He knows that they is communicating with 33 bits. They're communicating with 33 bits, and now he try to convert these 33 bits to get some data. But what is the actual message we are sending? The actual message we are sending with of only 3 bits. Only of 3 bits. This is how we use traffic padding to confuse the attackers, and he will do more number of attacks. So more number of attempts. So the insertion of bits into gaps in a data stream to frustrate traffic analysis attempts. So this is one mechanism that we follow to overcome the security attack. And the next one is notarization. So the use of a trusted third party to assure certain properties of data exchange. For example, I told you when we are exchanging data between A and B, I told A will tell to B that the actual data will be at position 5, at position 10, and at position 15. These data need to be communicated to B. Now what we'll do is, either we can directly meet B, beat B, and we can say to him, so these are the positions, or else we can use a third person. And we can tell to that third person, please tell to B that I am sending the actual message at the locations 5, 10, and 15. Now we call that third person as what? Notarization. We can call that third person as what? Notarization. And the last one that I forgot to tell you is what? Routing control. This routing control enables selection of particular physically secure routes for certain data and allows routing changes, especially when a breach of security is suspected. So instead of considering this in the aspect of computer networks, we can consider this in normal traffic case routing. So for example, if there are some routes, for example, consider there is a route I want to reach from A to B. Consider A is my source, where I need to reach is what? B is destination. There are some 4 possible routes. Now, instead of me, consider a chief minister want to go from A to B. Chief Minister want to go from A to B. Now, what does the police people will do is they will assess these 4 routes. They will assess these 4 routes, and from these 4 routes, they will find the best and secure route. They will find the best. For example, consider this takes only 2 kilometers. This is a best route, but this is not a secure route. Now, what will do? They will not go for the 2 kilometer. Consider this is requires 3 kilometers, but this is a very secure route to for the chief minister to travel from A to B. Now, what they will do is they will choose this route. Why? Because even though it is taking 1 kilometer extra, but it is a secure and safe route. In the same way, while we are considering data to be transferred between A and B over a network, there will be different number of possible routes to be transferred data from A to B. Now, this routing control, what it will do is it will choose a best and secure route to transfer the data between A and B, where we'll have a less number of attacks. We'll have less number of attacks on the data. So this is the last security mechanism I want to tell you, routing control. That's why I've kept for the last one, because we need to explain with an example. Okay, now the previous thing we are considered about different security services. Now we are considered about different security mechanisms. So let us have once over what is different security mechanisms we are considered: encipherment, digital signature, access control, data integrity, authentication exchange, traffic padding, routing control, and notarization. Now, we can provide a relation between security service and these security mechanisms. For example, if I want to provide a data security service on data confidentiality, then the mechanisms I can use is encipherment and routing control. The mechanisms I can use is what? Encipherment and routing control. For example, if I want to provide security services on data integrity, the mechanisms I can follow or I can use is encipherment, digital signature, and data integrity. For example, if I want to provide security service authentication to an organization, now I can use security mechanisms: encipherment, digital signature, authentication, exchanges. But remember, either we can use all these 3 or at least one. Okay. Next, the next one is non-repudiation, where we can use digital signature, data integrity, and notarization. And the last one is access control, where we can use access control mechanism. This is how we can relate security service and security mechanisms. So in this class, we have seen about security services, different security mechanisms, and how we can relate security services with security mechanisms. Okay, in the next class, we'll see about basic mathematics of cryptography. Okay, thank you one and all.